Programme Talkback at bbc.co.uk.
Just turning 6.5 minutes past 1. Welcome back, everybody. And we've talked a lot in the past, haven't we, about 4-day weeks and the potential of a 4-day week. Well, there's more evidence. With every passing month, it seems these days, more stories about trials and projects exploring whether a 4-day week works as a working week. Today, all over the news, Atom Bank. That's an app-based lending bank based in the northeast of England. It says its 4-day working week trial has been overwhelmingly positive for employees. It has improved productivity. It has increased job satisfaction. They ran a trial beginning last year, and they gave staff the chance to move from a working week of 37 and a half hours spread over 5 days to 34 hours spread over 4 days without any change in their salary. So fewer hours per week, 4 days per week, same salary. And it seems to have worked out for them. We've also got 4-day week pilots taking place in various parts of the world right now, including some in the UK. We're expecting more results around December. If it takes on, how might a 4-day week affect your life? Not just your working life, your life more generally. Are there pluses? Are there minuses, or are there just pluses? I mean, who wouldn't want to work 4 days instead of 5 for the same money? Would it change other aspects of your life, the way you approach life? Dr. Mansoor Soomro is with us, Senior Lecturer in Sustainability and International Business at Teesside University. Also, the lead for the Future of Work Research Centre at the university. Mansoor, welcome. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Is the evidence becoming, it seems in the newspapers anyway, is the evidence becoming really, really clear that this is a workable model for businesses, for all businesses, or only for some?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show. So as the data is coming in, what we see is positive news towards it. It's a positive move towards it. I mean, back in time before the pilot began in the UK in 2021, the figures, the estimates were that over 80% population surveyed, they mentioned that they are in favor of 4-day working week. But now, since, as you know, the pilot, we're halfway in the pilot, so it began in June and will be completed by November. So we're halfway there, and as of now, the interim results are that two-thirds of the companies that are participating, so they're close to 70 companies. So they are finding it interesting and positive in this case. So this is in terms of the data. And now, if I look at the macro picture, William, it's we're moving in a very interesting time. It's a gig economy, freelance work, digital economy, artificial intelligence at its best. So in this case, if we take a macro view and if we look at the countries around, for example, in Europe, Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway have the least number of working hours. And as per OECD, if you look at the productivity, they are still amongst the top most productive countries in the lead. So this question is very interesting, whether working more hours or working less hours is the name of the game.
Tell me this, because this is confusing to a lot of us. How is it possible that a company like Atom Bank can move their staff from 37 and a half hours a week to 34 hours a week? Forget the fact that it's 4 days instead of 5, but just move from 37 and a half to 34 weeks with no deficit, no downside to their productivity.
Okay, William. I teach at university, and so taking a bit of literature there, right? So back in 1914, when Henry Ford started the whole automobile car production and stuff. So I think it was year 1915 when he said that, we'll move from 6-day working week to a 5-day working week, right? So first of all, how did this all start? Who said week has to have 7 days? Who said working week has to have 5 days? I mean, what's the idea behind it? So I think it's a relative.
I was going to say it wasn't written in stone, but actually it was once, wasn't it?
It is, but the irony is that why is it still written in stone?
Yeah,
like, for example, 21st century models, and particularly the pandemic has given it a major transformative push, and it has forced us to think that there is a need for a reset in this whole working model, the way we work, workforce, and organizations. I think it's interesting, but again, how do the question that you mentioned that it's puzzling, it's perplexing that how will you shrink all that work and the productivity will still remain? I think it's about employee morale. It's about setting smart targets. It's about moving in terms of the work styles, moving to a plan where we are more productive and trying to cascade in terms of it. So I know it's challenging, but interesting.
Well, I can see it, for example, where you work can have an impact on how much work you get done. You know, some people get a lot more work done working at home with no distractions. Others find lots of distractions at home will get less work done. So that simple change, that physical change can have an impact on your productivity across the same number of hours. And maybe you're right. Maybe if people have more time off, if they've got more time with their family, more time to do R&R and a bit of sport and whatever else they're doing, they work with more energy in the 34 hours they have rather than the 37 hours. Mansoor, stay with us, with you. We want to learn more from you. And I'm asking the public here in our audience, what would you do with that extra time? If you had 3 days of a weekend, I mean, it would turn every week would become a bank holiday week, wouldn't it? If you had 4 days on, 3 days off, what would you do? Would you get another job? Would you spend more time doing family things? Would you do more city breaks if you could afford? What would you do with that extra time in your life? And how would it change the way you see your life? Remember, we many of us take a 5-day working week for granted, but as Mansoor has just said, that had to be fought for. Those changes had to come in. Even the idea of a weekend had to be fought for in terms of political change and business change. So why not this? Why not a 4-day working week? Frank Shivers and Orla Smith are with us, both work in business owners. Good to have you with us. Frank, what do you think? 4-day working week, you up for it?
I don't know whether I would be up for it, but it's certainly, the evidence would suggest in certain sectors, project-related jobs or task and finish jobs, that it may be workable. Mm-hmm. But a lot of other sectors, I don't think it is. It is workable, and I think ultimately it will create problems for employers. Which kind of sectors of work do you think this wouldn't work in? Well, I think so. Maybe the hospitality, the retail side of things. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to recruit staff in those industries at the moment. If you start putting people down to 4-day weeks, you still need people within the retail shops. You still need people within the bars and restaurants. So you would end up having to employ more people to cover those shifts. And Mansoor, just on this point, there are different ways in which you can do a 4-day working week model, right? In some of the models, you'd have less time, fewer hours, as in the Atom Bank model here. In some of the models, you'd actually have the same number of hours per week, but squeezed into 4 days. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So the debate is that whether we give you one full day off, right, and the rest of the days remain unchanged, or the other option is that we reduce the number of hours every day, and then you have a 6-hour work day each day. And both the propositions are interesting, and that's not the conversation that you're doing. So, I mean, it's situational. It will not work for every company. Mm-hmm. It will not work for every industry. But if you look at this, like some of the industries, they might find it challenging. For example, the medical, the healthcare industry, the transport, logistics, supply chain, there will be issues. But the point is that even now, they are not working 5 days a week. I mean, these businesses are on the go 24/7. Most of them 7 days a week. So certainly there are shifts. Mm-hmm. There are episodic work style that is being followed. The only thing is that there will be some disruption in that. And as you said, that there might be a need to hire more people or to reshift in terms of the work schedules.
Some of you text 81771. What about farmers, says this text, self-employed people? They can't work a 4-day week. Some are actually already working. There are some people who are self-employed who are part-time. Of course, there are some people working 2 or 3 days a week. They make that choice. Gerard, who's an electrician in Belfast, says he's working on a building site in Belfast 6 days a week, and they can't get anybody else to work there. They'd like another day off. I get it. Brian says, I would get another job, actually. More money, more things to do with the kids over the weekend. And that's a choice that people can make. What you choose to do with that additional day is a matter for yourself. Orla, what do you think?
William, I'm actually very in favour of basically, for me, it's what suits our employees, but what also suits the business. It makes for a happier workforce all round. And I kind of come from both angles, because I was an employee for a long time and now I'm a business owner. And I'll be honest, one of the issues as an employee that really kind of peeved me off was the presenteeism valued over productivity. So when I opened my own business, it certainly was something that I wanted to look at, that, you know, somebody can sit there and do very little for 5 days a week. And that shouldn't be, you know, there was that whole area looked at. So to be fair, I leave it down to my individual management and the staff. And if they want to do 4 days a week, they absolutely can. If they want to do 5. And some people actually don't like the 4-day week. Some people would prefer to do the 5 days. But my view is, you know, if there's no detrimental impact to the business, there's certainly so many positive impacts to staff. And even on a personal level, you know, I absolutely love my extra day off a week. And I certainly try to only work 4 days a week, as an example to the guys as well.
So if it works with your workflow, it could help you, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, as I say, it genuinely isn't always what the employee wants to do. But when it is, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think any of us come to the end of our lives and say, I wish I'd spent more time in work. So if we can make it work that people have more time to pursue sporting interests, you know, family interests, basically whatever they want, to me, then those staff are much more motivated and much more productive in the time that they are in their place of employment.
Orla, when I look at the future, and I think maybe in 25 years' time, do you not think in 25 years' time the idea of a typical 5-day working week will have shifted to a 4-day week?
I'm not 100% sure.
No.
Whilst I would love that, the other problem I think is even if you work a 5-day week, I mean, for example, a lot of my friends who are still lawyers, I mean, they're really kind of working 24/7 all the time too. And when they're on holiday, just purely for the nature of technology now. So I think business leaders and those really need to set the example themselves, in my opinion, that actually, you know, if I, as a business owner with 40 staff, can manage to do it over a 4-day week, then why can't everybody else?
Mansoor, do you think in, say, 20, 25 years' time, a 4-day week will be the most common model in the way that a 5-day week is currently the most common model?
I think 25 years is too far. I mean, I'm more optimistic. I'm more optimistic on this. I mean, as per the research we have at the Future of Work Research Center, like the last 3 years, there has been an unprecedented change in the way we work. Before that, you know, remote work was considered as no work. Managers used to think that if you're working at home, actually you're not working. Right. So the whole mindset, the perception has changed. Yeah. And I see that we're talking about 5 to 10 years for this change to work around. Like the pilot has begun in Canada, in United States, in this year alone.
Very interesting.
We've seen it across the belt in New Zealand, Australia. So I think Japan tried it multiple years before. Microsoft tried the first pilot in Japan office. And since then, they haven't moved on from 5 years. And this was 6 to 7 years back. So I think the flexibility now is a competitive advantage, and employers have to offer it. I mean, it's just a market choice now.
Declan says, be careful what you wish for. Doing a 4-day week entitles you to 22.5 paid holidays instead of the full 28 paid holidays. I work 40 hours in 4 days, he says, but I do overtime on a Friday, which doesn't entitle me to the full 28 days, full holidays. How would this work in terms of holidays then, Mansoor?
I think that's contractual stuff. Certainly, we have to.
He doesn't sound like he's got a great deal there, by the way, does it?
I mean, the point of, still, my point of view is that number of hours, yeah, it's fine, but the point is that the barometer at which we are looking at now, in terms of the modern workplaces in 21st century, it's performance, results, and output, rather than time in, time out, check in, check out, and all those sort of things. Right. So I think the number of hours thing, I think that is soon going to be a thing of the past, and it will be all based on performance. That will be agreed as a contract. And this whole thing of number of hours, number of days, holidays, calendar days, I think that this will fizzle out soon.
Frank, does that make more sense? I mean, the hours-based approach to working seems like presenteeism, isn't it? We judge you on the number of hours that you come into the building or work online, whereas, in effect, if you want to be a successful company, it's the product that should be the indication of whether someone's successful or not as an employee.
Yeah, William, I agree. And I mean, look, employers are becoming more and more diverse in how they approach this. I mean, if you've got a really good team member who presents themselves and says, look, I've got a problem. I can't work a Wednesday because I'm looking after my grandchild or whatever. If they're a good employee, you're gonna sort of look at that sensibly and say, right, okay, how can we as a business get around that? And I think employers generally do that, and they've become a lot more relaxed and this home working type stuff that works for some, it doesn't work for others, and it works for some sectors and it doesn't work for other sectors. But it's also a little bit about fairness. And I mean, if people work overtime, quite rightly, they expect additional pay. So if they work less hours, why would they expect the same pay?
We've got some calls, 030 30 80 55 55. Just like, I don't know what you do with that extra time. Would you get an extra job? Are you one of those people saying, even if I'm only working 3 days here, I want to work somewhere else, get some extra money? Or would you try to stretch your weekend, try to change the whole sort of architecture of your week? Because creating a weekend changes your week. What about a weekend that's 3 days long or possibly even 4 days long? William is in Portadown. Hello, William.
Good afternoon, William. You've said it yourself again there. I think it's 3 times you've implied that in the way that this would work. And some people have, I think, this utopian view of it, that it's a Monday to Thursday with a long weekend every week. And I think that's misguided. For some companies in isolation, it would work. But having worked concentrated shifts, we used to call them, where you'd work 4 days, but 50, 60 hours. If you're off on a Monday and Tuesday, somebody else has to work on a Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
It'll end up with more employees working in like a shift system where you might work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday and be off on Monday, Tuesday.
Are you thinking there of a service model where you want to be open 5 or 6 days a week?
Well, it happens now. It happens now where emergency services and NHS work in block like that.
Right.
But the other thing is, if you're going somewhere, someone else has to be working.
Uh-huh.
So managing peak times for customers and hospitality, it becomes increasingly difficult across. If it's a societal change. But Declan mentioned there about annual leave is a good point. Some companies already, a day isn't. A day's leave isn't 8 hours off anymore. If it's divided up over 4 days, that becomes 12 hours of leave that you have to deduct from your total. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about managing everything else that you wanted to work. Some people it will work really well for, no doubt.
It's going to happen though, isn't it?
Well, look, personally, I do it myself.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, but in a different format. In that, if I have 6 jobs to do and I'm self-employed, I'll work flat out to get them done to buy me as much time off as possible. Slightly different format, but the principle is much the same, to get time off.
William, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Orly, you run you own a coffee shop, right?
7, yeah.
Maybe you own 7 coffee shops, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You want them to be open how many days a week?
They're open 7 days a week.
7 days a week. How would this work practically in your world?
Well, as I say, our guys already do 4 days if they're full-time and that's what they want. I mean, the guy makes a good point. It's not just a Monday to Thursday and everybody gets Friday, Saturday and Sunday off. But, I mean, people who work in the hospitality industry obviously are aware that they won't be off every weekend. But how we try and do it is that, they get their 2 days off together and their extra day. And absolutely, that will be sometimes, 1 in every 3 or whatever at a weekend. But, the nature of any business, which is over 7 days a week, it's not going to be somebody works Monday to Thursday and somebody works Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It has to be fair across the board.
So it's working, Frank, and it can work.
As I say at the start, William, it certainly can work for certain sectors and certain industries. It's not ideal for others, but you haven't addressed.
Well, Orla's open. Orla's open 7 days a week.
I know you didn't address my question as to, somebody, if an employee works overtime, quite rightly wants additional money for that. So if they're working less time, surely there would be a reduction in the salary.
Mansoor?
No, okay. The premise is 100-80-100. 100% of the pay for 80% of the time for maintaining the 100% of productivity. So, my point of view is that as long as the productivity is maintained, so the 1 day less number of hours, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. So in that case, it's productivity that matters. And
so it's about productivity, not about clocking in. It's not about the hours.
Yeah.
It's about productivity, Frank.
Okay, so if the productivity is not achieved, then obviously you would have to measure that. Do they work later, or do they work more hours for nothing?
He wants to know, should he pay them for overtime? What's the point of doing overtime if it's not about hours? Overtime is by definition about hours, isn't it, Mansoor?
Yes. So to the point that, let's say they don't deliver in the same number of hours, then that means that the model doesn't work for them, and that's underperformance for them. So
then you're going to have a conversation about maybe going back to 5 days a week for that person, because they're clearly not doing all the productivity in 80% of the time.
Which is a change of contracts and has to be negotiated in time and all sorts of things.
Yeah, but there will be a provision for this in the contract. So I don't see...
It's how you write the contract.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see...
the expectation in the contract is not that you turn up so many hours a week. The expectation is, and you have to be clear about how you specify this, that you deliver 100% of the productivity by a certain definition. Here's John in Belfast. John.
William.
Welcome to the 21st century, John.
Yeah, but there's an old cliche comes to mind here. I say, beware of the strangers burying gifts, because employers do not give their workers anything unless they're going to benefit more from it. Now, and my question is, will this affect the workers' rights in any way, and is it going to make strike action more difficult?
Is this going to affect... Of course, employers want to make money. They want to get a profit in those kind of profit-making businesses, Mansoor. Is it going to affect workers' rights?
There will be some shifts in that, but I don't see that it will adversely affect it. Because the proposition of flexibility and future of work and, 6 hours per day or 4 working days per week, the whole idea is that, it's flexibility and it's helping employees help the organization.
Yeah.
So, there are multiple, as we have just discussed, there are multiple pros, right? So in the current rising cost of living, 1 day less and pursuing other passions and all that thing, work-life balance.
Yeah, it's another
health.
freedom.
So there are multiple points. But on the employer side, again, I don't see a win-lose situation because, for example, there are 2 interesting points that we found in the data last week. One is that this whole idea of flexibility, less number of hours with the same number of productivity is helping in terms of gender equality. A lot of women, females, they are not pursuing what they want to pursue because of this. But now if there's 1 day off or less number of hours, they can still look for a full-time job instead of a part-time occupancy. Also the impact on environment, reducing the carbon footprint. So I think the advantages are more, but again, there will be challenges. Certainly it's not
Mansoor,
the best of the best.
I've only got 10 seconds left. When do you think the robots are going to put us all out of work anyway?
Very soon.
Very soon. Oh, there you go. Mansoor Soomro, Frank Shivers and Orla Smith, thanks very much. Here's Hugo.